Hello and welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic, where today I think we're going to make a use of the fact that it was the World Sudoku Championship very recently in Prague. You may have seen Mark solve the puzzle from the tournament in a video earlier this week, but I want to take a look at what happened in the final, and this consists of the four best solvers basically having a race over, I think it's 5 puzzles. And on the screen there you can see one of these puzzles being solved by none other than Kota Morinishi, the reigning World Sudoku champion, trying to retain his crown. This variation is called a Fortress Sudoku, and what that means is it's got classic Sudoku rules, so we need to fill in the numbers 1 to 9 in the 3x3 boxes. But you see those grey cells there? Wherever there's a grey cell, that has to be greater than an orthogonally connected white cell. So that's the only rule that applies, or the additional rule that applies in this Sudoku. And this offers a rare opportunity to actually study the solving technique of Kota. And I'll just play the video now because I think it's quite interesting. I don't know if it'll come out in a high enough resolution on the video, but I can certainly see some interesting things about the way he's solving. Firstly, he's using hybrid notation. What do I mean by that? Well, what he's writing in the squares there is a combination of two things. Let's just go back to it. Just gone back to it and paused it. So in some cells he's written 2 numbers, and in those cells what I think he's saying is that that cell must contain either of those 2 possibilities. In other cells, if you look carefully, you can see on the boundaries between 2 cells he's written a number, and I think what he's doing there is he's saying that that number is in one of those 2 cells. So quite interesting. I don't know what he does if, for example, a number can go in the top left-hand cell of a 3x3 box or the bottom right-hand cell of a 3x3 box. How he connects those 2 things together, I'm not sure. We can't see it from the video, but fascinating to see how he solved it. You can see this puzzle, 70-point puzzle. Now, for the solvers of Kota speed, that's probably a 6 or a 7-minute puzzle. Now what we're going to do in a moment is see how fast we can solve it. Well, what we'll do is we'll do it slowly and think about the logic, but I really recommend, if you have time, that you note down the puzzle yourselves and give it a go, and that way you will see what an absolute genius Kota Morinishi is when it comes to solving Sudoku. Okay, let's go. Okay, so here's the puzzle. Let's think about what these constraints might mean with these grey cells. Now, firstly, let's just explain what orthogonal means. Now, orthogonal means connected along a long edge. So this square and this square are orthogonally connected. This square and this square are not orthogonally connected. So squares connected at a corner are not orthogonally connected. Now, this means that these squares, for example, are very important in terms of the solve because they are orthogonally connected to the most number of other cells in the context of the restrictions that the grey cells imply. And one thing that it should be immediately obvious is the importance of the number 9. So if we look, for example, at this square, and this square, obviously none of these could be a 9 because that would imply this square would have to be greater. This would have to be a 10, not possible. Similar reasons, 1s are very restricted at the start because we cannot have a 1 in this square. You couldn't have a 1 in this square because the adjacent squares would have to be 0. So 1s and 9s are normally the place to start with a Fortress Sudoku. Now the slight quirk with this puzzle as well is if we look at this central square in each of these plus shapes, this is not orthogonally connected to any white square, and therefore this square actually is not restricted at all according to the rules. Remember that the rules say that it's where a grey cell is orthogonally connected to a white cell that the grey square must be the greater number. So we're going to have to be careful as we go through the solve not to fall foul of that by assuming anything about those central parts of the cross shapes. So where would I start here? Well, the thing I can see immediately is it's possible to write a 9 into this 3 by 3 block. So have a think about how you might do that. Pause if you need to, but the reason we can write a 9 in is this 9 and this 9 mean that the 9 and this 9, I suppose, mean that the 9 is either in this position or this position. Now, for the reasons we just mentioned, this can never be a 9 because it would mean we needed a 10 in both of these cells. You can't have a 10 in a Sudoku, so that gives us our first big number. Let's write that in. Similar reasons, actually, we can write a 9 into this square. This 9 and this 9 force the 9 into one of these 3 squares, but we know it can't be in either of these squares, either of these white squares, because they need to be less than the adjacent number. That gives us another big number, which is presumably helpful. And in fact, it gives us another number as well, because let's have a look over on the right-hand side of the grid. 9 and 9. So the 9 in this block is in one of these 3 positions. Now we've seen already it can't be in either of these cells, because this cell would have to be greater. So we can add another 9. And another 9. Same reason again, i.e. we can't have a 9 here. So we're doing very well with 9s. Now 9 on this side of the grid, I don't think we can tell which of these is the correct 9, because this cell of course is not restricted. And similarly over on this side, let's put a 9 in there. Wow, this is okay. Now you may be wondering why we're covering Fortress Sudoku. We do a lot of classic Sudoku, and I know that's what a lot of you want to see. Well, some of these variations, they reveal some beautiful logic that actually is useful in any Sudoku. Now, believe it or not, it's now perfectly possible to write an 8, a big 8, into this block. I'm even going to write it in. I'm going to write it here. And I invite you to try and work out how I've written that 8 in. How logically is it possible to demonstrate this square as an 8? And I'll show you now, but it's a really lovely puzzle design. First place we need to look is at this 3 by 3 block, believe it or not. I'm not going to look at this one at all. I'm just going to look at this 3 by 3 block and ask myself where an 8 can go. We have this 8 down here, so there's no 8 down column 2. But we can go further than that. Can there be an 8 in either of these 2 positions? And the answer is no, because obviously if an 8 is in either of these positions, we'd need to put a 9 into both of the orthogonally connected cells. So we'd have to have a 9 in both this position and this position, which is not possible. We can't have a repeated 9 in a 3 by 3 cage. So neither of these cells is an 8 either. Now that means that there is an 8 in one of these positions. And you may say, well, how is that useful? Well, it's useful because it interacts very nicely with this central 3 by 3 block, where the 8s again are locked in to rows 4 and 6. So we have 1 8 in row 4 or 6 from this block, and 1 8 in row 4 or 6 from this block. And what should be clear, therefore, is there can't be any more 8s in rows 4 and 6 in this 3 by 3 block. Otherwise, we'd have more than 1 8 in either row 4 or row 6. So the 8 in this 3 by 3 block is forced to be in one of 3 positions. This one, or this one. And for the reasons we've already discussed, there cannot be 8s in these positions, because we'd have to have 2 9s in the orthogonally connected boxes. So, incredible as it may seem, this square here is an 8, and we can write that in off the bat. Absolutely lovely puzzle design. Fantastic. And this 8 is actually incredibly powerful, because now let's look at where an 8 can go in this 3 by 3 block down at the bottom here. So obviously there can't be 8s here, here, or here because of the 8s in these positions, which means there's 3 positions left for an 8. Well, for the reasons we've discussed at length, this can't be an 8 here, because then this would have to be a 9, which it can't be, so we can remove that one. Can this be an 8? Well, if this is an 8, that's going to force an 8 into this cell. And we know that this can't be an 8, because then this would have to be a 9. So this isn't an 8 either. Let's remove that. That means this is an 8. Now that means that either this square or this square is an 8. Well, can this square be an 8? For the reasons I've been blathering on about, no. So in fact this is an 8 here as well. So this shows you another important principle with Fortress Sudoku, which is that once you have a lot of 9s placed, actually the 8s, they almost become the new 9. Because of this funny restriction and the way it works, you can make a lot of progress by focusing on the next highest number after the one that you've sort of placed first of all. This puzzle is sensational actually, because we can now do this same trick with the 8s again, can't we? I.e., where can an 8 go in this 3x3 block? Well, we know it can't go here or here, and for the reasons we've talked about, it can't go here or here, so the 8 is in one of these 4 positions, which again mirrors what we have here, but this time not for rows 4 and 6, but for columns 4 and 6. So now we know that the 8 in this 3x3 block is locked into column 5, and it can only go here. That's just wonderful. If the puzzles in the World Championship are all of this quality, wow. I think now if we look at the top row of the grid and how it interacts with column 5, we're looking for 1, 2, 5 and 8, and you can see this square here, in fact, I think can only be at 2 now. Obviously we can never have a 1 in this square, because then this would be a 0, so this is a 5 or an 8. I'm just going to write that in just to see if I can see anything that results from that. And if we look down column 5, we've got to place 3, 4 and 7. So this is a 3 or a 4. Okay, I can't see. Now, but there's another trick we can do here. Look at row 9. Believe it or not, it's possible to write in a number in row 9. Even more surprising, perhaps, it's this square. Let's think about why. We know we've got to place the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6. Obviously this can never be a 1, that's going to make these two a 0. Similarly, it can never be a 2 either, because then we would need a 1 here and a 1 here. That's not possible either. Now 3 ordinarily would be possible, but here we have a 1 and a 2 already in column 5, so this cannot be a 1 or a 2, it has to be greater than 1 or 2. So this can't be 3. It can't be 4 because of this 4, therefore it can only be 6. Wow. And actually this block's restricted by this 8 as well, isn't it? Because we can't place the 8 here or here for the reasons we've talked about a lot. Can't be an 8 here or here, so this has to be an 8. Let's put that in. If we look at this block now, we need to place the numbers 1, 2, 5 and 6. But whatever we place into this square has to be greater than 3 other numbers. So in fact that must be the biggest number that's left to choose, which is the 6. And the remaining cells have got to be 1, 2 and 5, which means that's a 1, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, like that. And this square here must be a 6 by simple Sudoku rules, nothing clever about that. And then if we look at the 6s down here, 6 and 6, and this 6, there's a 6 in either this position or this position. But can this be a 6? If this is a 6, this is going to have to be greater than a 6, so it's going to have to be a 7, 8 or 9. Not possible because of what we've already got in column 1 there, so this is not the 6. This must be the 6, which which means this is a 6 or this is a 6, I think. Ditto over on this side. Oh, and actually I've been focusing on all the complicated logic, but you can see now we have a 2 here and a 2 here, so in fact I can write a 2 there. Look, let's eliminate that. And that means there's a 2 in this square or this square. That's not very restricted, so I can't see how to make much progress from there. Similarly, 4s, I think simple Sudoku rules give us a 4 here, don't they? Which actually helps us with that 3 that we identified earlier. That gives us a 7 there. Ah, now that's helpful. Look, we've got 7 locked into one of these two positions, but 7 is greater than 6, so this is not a 7. This must be the 7 here. Let's try and make sure I don't miss any simple logic. 1, 2 and 4 to place along the bottom row. No, can't see how to make use of that. But then we need to put a 7 in this block somewhere. Fairly obviously it can't go in any of the white squares that are left, so we've got to put it in that square. I'm going to write in the options for these just so I don't lose track of them. 1, 3 and 5. This really is one of my favourite puzzles I've done recently, because now look at the 7s. We have a 7 here and a 7 here. Now that would mean in theory there's a 7 in one of these 3 positions, but look again, we cannot have a 7 in this position, because if there is a 7 here, this square will have to be an 8 or a 9, which is not possible. So this is not a 7. That gives us a 7, 6 double in this column, but more importantly, look, over here we know again the 7s are locked into rows 4 and 6 again. So over here there cannot be a 7 in rows 4 and 6. That means the 7 is in row 5, and the only place it can go, because of the 7s we already have placed, is there. Absolutely lovely. We can pencil mark 8, look into those 2 squares. That gives us a nice 8, 9 double here. Now 4s are locked into one of those 2 positions, look. Again, simple Sudoku rules there. That means there's a 4 in one of these 2 positions. 4. Do anything more with the 4s? Don't quite see how. See 4 in one of these 3 positions, but I can't see. This 8 isn't restricting much, to be honest, is it? I mean, it's big enough that it's bullying the numbers around it. Yes, okay. And now we can think about where to place an 8 in this central block. You can see this can't be an 8 because this can only be a 6 or a 7. And this can't be an 8 because this is a 6. So the 8 is here or here. And that means that over here, this must be the 8. This must be a 9. 9, 9, that resolves the 9's position over here. It's got to be a 9 now. That 9. It's surprising actually how I would have thought at this point the puzzle would become almost trivial, but it doesn't seem to be yielding at all, really. Now 4, 4, so there's a 4 either here or here, which means the 4 is locked into one of these squares down in the bottom 3 by 3. Okay, yes, let's look at this 3 and this 3. So I think, where's my thingy gone? That's better. So there's a 3 here and a 3 here, so we can pencil mark 3s into those cells. Now let's look, that puts a 3 in one of these two cells, but this cell is important. This cannot be a 3 because we'd have to have 3 numbers less than 3 to put in the box, so that is critical. That's going to give us a 3 here. Now that might help. We now have 3s down this side. We have to think about where we can place a 5 in this block as well. It can go here or here, but it can't go here because then we couldn't have a number bigger than it in this cell. All I can see here is we've got 1 5 pair now in row 2, which leaves I think 3 and 7 as the options for those squares. So we're still looking to place 1 5 and 8. It can be a 1 or a 5 here. Let's go back to this middle block. 2, 3, 7 and 8. So that's got to be a 2 or a 3 because it can't be a 7 or an 8 because of the 6 here. This one could be a 2, a 3. Can this be a 7? If this is a 7, this can't be bigger. So actually there's a 2, 3 pair there. That's nice. So this must be a 7, 8 pair down here. That resolves. That must be a 7. This must be a 6. Which means this is a 6 up here. Let's remove that 6 now. So we've still got to place 1, 2 and 3 in this column, and you can see now this must be the biggest of those numbers because it's got to have a smaller number on either side. So that gives us a 3 here, a 3 here because of our earlier pencil marks. This must therefore be a 4, I think. This must be a 5. I think we're on the home straight now. It's taken certainly getting this done in 7 minutes. That is quite incredible under time pressure. Quite incredible. 1, 2 pair along there. Look. It almost feels to me like I'm going to have to just do full pencil marks to resolve this final bit. So I'm not seeing anything terribly clever. 7, 8, so this has got to be 2. Okay. What's that? So there's a 1, 2, 4 triple now. I think we've isolated in this cell. So this must be a 5. That looks helpful, doesn't it? So 5, 5, 1. Means this must be a 1. This must be a 1. 3, 5, 1, 4, 1, 2, 2, 1, 4 and 2, like that, I think. Which means this must be a 3 if all of that looks like it's working. This 5 here now means this must be the 5. So we've got 1, 2 and 4 to place. This must be the 4. That's therefore resolving the 2 and the 1 like that. What a lovely puzzle this is. 5, 1, 4, 2, 3. And there we go. Absolutely fantastic. So I hope this was an interesting exercise. I mean, in terms of the viewers of the channel who I know prefer classic Sudoku in the main, I still think that the logic that we've seen today in this puzzle, it should appeal to you, and for that reason I hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, do subscribe, do like our channel. You can follow us at Cryptic Cracking on Twitter, and if you have any puzzles you'd like us to solve, do send them over to us. You can highlight them on Twitter, and if we have time we'll certainly try and do them. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.